So, apparently Antifa are planning a nationwide day of anarchy on November the 4th. And as a British person, I find that rather amusing. Why November the 4th? Oh, it'll be something to do with Guy Fawkes, won't it? It will be something to do with V for Vendetta, popularising Guy Fawkes, which honestly, and again, as a British person, I find this particularly strange, given how Guy Fawkes was trying to institute a Catholic theocracy in Britain by destroying the Houses of Parliament. There is a reason that in Protestant Britain we celebrate the execution of Guy Fawkes and the failure of his plan to destroy our democracy and implement a papist theocracy. So watching anarchists running around going, "Oh, Guy Fawkes, let's wear the mask, let's use the day, let's use this as a symbol." No. Guy Fawkes was a symbol of bad things, and we were lucky that he was caught. My God, it really is infuriating to watch these stupid kids who don't know anything about what they're talking about and what the symbolism of what they're using, just appropriating things willy-nilly. I mean, I don't care if they want to appropriate it, they just look stupid to me. So according to Antifa-based websites, two of them, plans are being made to end the Trump-Pence regime via acts of violence and terrorism across the United States. Well, I guess it's not really any different, is it? I mean, they are also anti-democracy. I'm sorry that people voted for Trump, but they did, and this is what you have. So you should really deal with that. Maybe, instead of wasting your energy trying to overthrow the elected government of the United States, you should be, I don't know, doing some sort of political activism that people can relate to, people could get in on and actually agree with, that doesn't violate the inherent principles of the country they live in and the values they hold. But I don't know, what do I know? I'm not a fucking anarchist. Don't get caught flat-footed. Call your congressman, senator, sheriff, mayor's office and ask them, what are you going to do to ensure that these domestic terrorists don't get away with killing more Americans? I assume that they mean the Trump regime, because this is the anonymous website that I'm reading from, or at least Anon News. Why would you want to contact your congressman, senator, sheriff, mayor's office, or whoever? Surely, if you are an anarchist, you see no legitimacy in these hierarchies. Surely, you are against these people by the very nature of the jobs that they do. RefuseFascism.org reports, "This nightmare must end," and we've been experiencing refuse fascism everywhere in Berkeley. It's been very amusing. But surely this nightmare must end. The Trump-Pence regime must go. I love the way they call it a regime. I mean, by the standards of how Trump got into office, that makes every president prior to him also part of a regime. So apparently they're going to gather in the streets and public squares of cities and towns across this country. At first, many thousands declaring this whole regime is illegitimate and we will not stop until our single demand is met. This nightmare must end. The Trump-Pence regime must go. Our protest must grow day after day, night after night, thousands becoming hundreds of thousands, then millions, determined to act to put a stop to the grave danger that the Trump-Pence regime poses to the world by demanding that this whole regime be removed from power. Yeah, okay, that's nice for you to say, but honestly, I think Antifa is petering out. I think after being declared a terrorist organization by the US government, and now we actually have the police enforcing the laws of this land, Antifa don't seem to want to come out and actually be violent. Incidentally, it seems to be removing the masks that is doing the work for us. So they're planning on appearing in New York City, Austin, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and that's it. So it's not that big, because I don't think this movement is really that big. I think that the problem has been the permissiveness of the authorities, not really knowing what to do with a bunch of extreme left middle-class kids who are running around LARPing as revolutionaries. But now they are doing something. Demasking them is simply the key, and preventing them from rioting with abandonment appears to have killed the movement, appears to have put an end to the problem of Antifa. In Berkeley so far, I have had no problems. I've had one communist shout at me. This communist shouted at me and said, "Hey, Sargon, you suck," from like, I don't know, 100 meters away. And I just yelled back at him, "Okay, we'll come over here and we'll talk about it. I'll record it. I'll put it on my YouTube channel. I'll make you famous." And he was like, "I don't want to be famous." So I just yelled back, "You better shut up then." And he just turned away and like skulked off. And it was like, okay, well, there we go. I mean, he didn't have his face covered, so he wasn't brave. He was afraid. And I'm not surprised. This appears to be connected to a website or an organisation called Revolutionary Abolition. So about the Revolutionary Abolitionist movement. They're a political movement dedicated to freeing people from bondage and building resistance in the United States. Well, I think that was a problem that ended about 150 years ago. So, I mean, it's nice that I agree with abolitionism completely. Don't see many slaves around, though. Just saying. We situate our political movement in the context of the abolitionist struggle against slavery and continue that tradition. Yeah, you really were born in the wrong generation, weren't you? You were born with no particularly great struggle to have to fight against. There's no massive moral imperative at the moment. You're really reaching for things. I feel kind of sad for these people. They want to be revolutionaries, but there really isn't anything to actually revolt against. What are you revolting against? Democratic legitimacy? Freedom? Capitalism? What are you revolting against? Democratic legitimacy? Freedom? What? What do you want? Do you want to live in a state like Cuba where you're not allowed to leave the country? Do you want to live in a state like Venezuela where the government may well come and do whatever they want to you and there is no recourse and you may end up starving? We believe the Civil War was never resolved. Pretty sure it was resolved. I mean, it seems to have been resolved again like about 150 years ago. And the system of slavery transitioned into the prison industrial complex. Going to prison is a choice. Breaking laws is a choice. You don't have to break a law. Our struggle today must begin from this starting point. Well, that's brilliant. Let's begin from a starting point that is not valid and then build on that. I mean, we're going to come up with something really sensible that really actually reflects the world around us if we take a starting point that simply isn't true. Good thinking. Lastly, as revolutionary anarchists, the abolitionist... I just find that really amusing. The abolitionist struggle must be extended to the state and capitalism, the perpetrators of oppression. Bah, 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 bah. Yes, this capitalism is the oppressive force here. Yeah. You can look at the 400 million people in China who have risen into the middle class, and they'll say, oh, God, capitalism is such a terribly oppressive force. I really liked the Maoist communist government, the one-party system we have to labour under, the lack of freedoms that we were enjoying. This capitalism is a real problem for me, even though it has demonstrably improved my life. And now I'm agitating for political freedom from our oppressive communist government. But okay, don't worry. Yeah, I see where the anarchists are going to go. They're going, yeah, but that's a state. We don't want states. That's a state. It's like, well, okay, fair enough. I guess you don't. But it's not capitalism that caused that problem, is it? The revolutionary movement in the US today is at a crossroads as fascist movements are expanding. And state becomes increasingly authoritarian. How is it becoming increasingly authoritarian, though? These anarchists were rioting in the streets for a year before the state even actually decided to do something, even though they had categorized them since 2016 as a terrorist organization. Shockingly permissive for an authoritarian state. I don't see Donald Trump shutting down any media organizations. I don't see him censoring anyone. I don't see him doing any of these things. Where is the authoritarianism? If anything, Trump looks weak. He looks like he's beset on all sides by enemies and he's having trouble getting things done. All he seems to really be able to do is executive order Obama's executive orders out of existence. And I guess that's what happens if you circumvent the actual lawmaking process in the country. The Rojava Revolution in northern Syria, backed entirely by the US and made possible only by US backing, provides us with a model for the revolution today. Backed by the US. You fucking idiots. Just with its foundation in communal and council-based political organization and militant defense. You actually have communal and council-based organization in the US. You understand that you're a federation of states. And in them you have city council. We have all of this in democratic countries. We also have a state, because that's what protects us from enemy states. And while enemy states exist, or not even enemies, just rival states that could become enemies, exist, we will also need a state. If you can't bring into effect worldwide anarchy, then you get no anarchy. That's how anarchy. That's the only way it's going to work. And every time it's been tried, I mean, let's talk about the Spanish Civil War. You know, every time it's tried, it's failed. It's just been defeated or it's collapsed under its own weight. What do you want? You're being ridiculous. You are being ridiculous. There is just no chance for this to happen. This is a waste of your fucking time. Go and get a job. So the short-term goals are an underground railroad. We will create networks for those facing detention, incarceration, deportation, or white supremacist violence to escape and live with dignity. What? To where? Canada? Isn't that white supremacist as well? We invite revolutionaries to help build a contemporary underground railroad outside of the reach of the state. You know what? You can leave at any time. People are not actually forced to stay in the United States. In fact, under Obama, millions of people were deported. Illegal immigrants were deported back to their countries of origin. I mean, and there's a huge movement in the United States to try and get a wall built to prevent people from coming the fuck in. If you don't want to be in the United States, you don't have to be. I mean, you have to apply to visas. I'm lucky I come from Britain because I can get an ESTA and it makes traveling to the US really easy for me. You know, it came back like that, no problems at all, great. You know, really easy for me to get into the US because I'm from like a trusted country, a close partner with good common shared values and whatnot. Coming from other places is very difficult. It's desirable for these people, which is usually what people are saying. Oh, let the immigrants in, let the immigrants in. But get them out secretly, I guess. So fucking stupid. Deportation, yes. Oh, God. An underground railroad would necessarily have to leave the oppressive country. They sent them to Canada. You would be deporting them with the Underground Railroad, you fucking idiots. Revolutionaries, social centres and Antifa groups that are already active can help build greater infrastructure of resistance to support those fleeing the state. What? Get out, commies. Long-term goal, building the abolitionist project. Yeah, that's a goal I think has been achieved. But sorry, I know you're not actually talking about slavery. Because that wouldn't be something you could reasonably make an argument against, because it's already gone. For the abolitionist project to be successful, we must eventually transition from resistance to revolutionary situation. Relationships and groups built through the Underground Railroad have the potential to become the foundation for organised defence groups, local councils, and regional national councils. How could you have a national council when you're trying to abolish the nation? Anyway, dummies. You're not thinking about the language you're using. We invite comrades to coordinate our activities regionally. Comrades, what are we, Russians now? Are we suggesting that Russia is an example of an anarchist state, perhaps under socialism? Really makes you think. So, the political foundation, self-defense, defense of oppressed people and of our political projects is paramount. We propose developing and tying defense teams to localities and collectives that are based on abolitionist practice. Okay. The neighborhood council. Neighborhoods already have these. As the Underground Railroad network grows outside the jurisdiction of the state and reactionary forces, it is built through non-hierarchical relationships of trust. You know, it's funny because I remember reading an article about how the Antifa groups were getting kind of gender hierarchies in place without anyone wanting them. The men were out training how to fight, and the women were making Molotov cocktails. And they started complaining because they were like, hey, we're feminists, we should be out training to fight, but don't really want to get punched in the face by a manlet. Conflict resolution and revolutionary justice. Oh, I'm seeing a lot of justice in this. I can see a lot of conflict resolution coming too. Forms of conflict resolution are essential for developing revolutionary relationships. Social cohesion, rather than punishment, must be the foundation. Okay, that's great. So, person A murders person B, and you're like, we can't punish this person. We need to cohere them. Abolitionist political growth seeks to destroy the prison, yet those oppressing others must be combated. I assume when they say the prison, they don't mean prisons, they mean the prison of the state. Abolition of gender. This is where it didn't work before with the Antifa groups. The same forces that put people in bondage also utilize gender roles as a source of domination. Well, that's true, actually. I tell you what, if you've ever met women in England, I agree. Abolish gender. Stop them from using their female power and privilege to make their men go out and work while they sit at home with the kids. That's what I say. Viva the revolution. Viva la revolution. Overcoming imprisonment and liberating humanity from captivity. Captivity? What? Must happen simultaneously with the abolition of gender constraints. Gender isn't a law, you know. I know that sounds crazy, right? It's like, well, there is actually nothing legally obligating you not to wear a dress if you want to wear a fucking dress. You can do it. It's actually not a constraint, at least not in the legal sense. Sure, you might go, well, that's the social tyranny of gender. And say, well, okay, maybe, but that to change that, you've got to persuade people and change their minds. Do you think you're going to be changing a lot of minds with this? I don't. Expropriation and the cooperative economy. Expropriation and the cooperative economy. I can't believe this is the last thing on the list, because this is easily the most important. To carve out an autonomous territory to build a nation. Right, that's what you want. Or begin the revolutionary process. Goods, lands, and tools must be expropriated or taken away from those who withhold them. Oh, well, that's okay then. I mean, you're just free to do this, I guess. Why not? I mean, it doesn't matter that this is, someone has put their hard labour in, and then you're going to come along and go, comrade, we're taking this from you. And hang on, isn't that what you complain the state does to other people, to you, presumably, and you're going to come and do it to me? So it's not a point of principle for you that it's wrong to do this. Otherwise you'd be like, well, we can't just take something that someone had built themselves. Obviously, it's not a point of principle. It's about might makes right. That's what all of this is. We are striving towards a situation where necessities cannot be taken away from those who need them, by taking away necessities from those who have them, and who earned them justly. Fucking brilliant. But instead are shared with those who lack them. I don't think they've thought about this very hard at all, but this is what pisses me off about this. They just don't care about their own hypocrisy and double standards. But thankfully, I don't think these people are going to get anywhere. I think they're going to try and attract people for this November the 4th, Day of Revolution. And I think that there will be people out in the streets in black bloc and face masks. And then I think the police will crack down. They will take away their face masks, take away their weapons. And then I think we see the revolution is over.